Yes, sir.
So we're with Cats Coverage. We're going to be the UK podcast for the Field of 68, which we're happy to join. You know, there's a growing college basketball podcast and a whole network, and we're happy to represent the Blue Blood, one of the most premier schools of them all. You know, we got a big love for Kentucky. And again, I'm Trace Terrell, and this is Michael. Michael, you want to tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, of course. I work for Fox 56 here in Lexington, one of the local TV stations doing sports. And a lot of fun to just cover this team. Obviously, basketball, football, all the UK sports. Love covering the high school sports here in the area. A lot of talented athletes, but obviously we're going to be talking about all the talented athletes on this UK hoops team. So it's going to be fun. I like this team a lot. It's going to be interesting to just kind of see them, get in some regular games because we saw an exhibition and they already look pretty good.
Yeah. So they're 5-0 now, I believe. They're all their or maybe let's see, 5-0 if you don't count the blue-white game, of course. So they look pretty good. There's a lot of potential on this team, and there's a lot of unknowns. There's the whole all 3 7-footers are out. We're throwing out some lineups. It's early in the season and it's still preseason to see what works and what kind of options are going to be best fit for this team until we get everybody back. But let's just jump right into it. They just played their first preseason exhibition against a local team called Georgetown College, just 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah, good team. Good NAIA team. Coach Briggs, they
powerhouse.
Have things going there. They're going to be real good in NAIA basketball. So good test for them.
Yeah, very good test because we saw at halftime Kentucky was just up 1. Part of that was because Georgetown College went on a quick 7-0 run to end the first half, going into the second half. But definitely, they got a young roster. They got a great test on Friday evening, and they had to kind of buckle up and show that the second half that they came to play a full 40 minutes. So that the idea is not to have it down up 1 point at halftime, but the second half was a different story. They got things back going the way it should be. I think they won by like 23. There's a lot to see in that game. A lot of players. I think there's 6 players that went for 9+ points. So a lot of offense. Were there any players that stuck out to you that you have your big takeaways from that night?
I was surprised about DJ Wagner not having the best game. He had 4 points, 2 of 9. I think he'll find his way. We talked on the previous episodes, and for you guys that are just joining here as we've joined the Field of 68, go back to our other episodes and check those out because we gave a full breakdown. Going into the blue-white game, talking about Global Jam, and one of our common themes while we wait for these big guys to come back is talking about all these talented guards because they're almost you can't have too many really, but it feels right now that there are just so many talented guys in that backcourt. So I think there are always going to be games where one of those stars just doesn't have a good game, right? And for this one, it was DJ, and Rob Dillingham has been solid, had another 16 points. And then you got Reed, and, you got, I think they're going to start figuring it out with Antonio Reeves always being in there. So that's kind of the most fascinating part as we progress through the first couple weeks of the season because they got a big test, obviously, on the 11th. I think the 11th against – no, it's the Champions Classic against Kansas.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be a big one. Number 1 team in the country.
Think about the headlines with that with Hunter Dickinson. Right. Kentucky missed out on him this summer, but, I think we figured it out with who we brought in after that. You'd like to have him, but it's not make or break with him. So Kentucky will be just fine without him. But it's going to be a big storyline night, Champions Classic, Kentucky and Kansas. Bill Self, John Calipari, just good college basketball. Just start the season. There's going to be a lot of takeaways from that game, a lot of that really won't matter by the end of the season, but a lot to get things stirred up to start the year off. I'm excited. Like you just said, DJ Wagner was a little slow, but it's early. It's the end of October. I fully expect those type of guys that we have, that the whole staff and every one of the teammates on the team have said we have dogs on this team, and they all use the term dogs. And I feel like if you're a dog, you're going to show up in those big, in front of those bright lights. So I'm not too worried about our future stars for the Kansas game. I think DJ Wagner will be back to himself, and hopefully Antonio Reeves joins those freshmen and becomes a dog as well, like he was last year.
Yeah, and we've heard the term, the dog term. We didn't hear it a ton the last couple of years because there weren't really a ton of dogs. Like Case Wallace was a dog. I mean, clearly, as we see, him balling out for the Oklahoma City Thunder already in the NBA, that dude's a dog, like on offense and defense. This team has dogs, but, you're always going to have some guys that are going to feel left out, right, in the rotation. And that isn't a big concern until you really get to conference play. So for now, I think just testing these lineups is going to be huge to kind of just figure out how these guys kind of blend together. But I think, Justin Edwards has really stood out, obviously, from his time in, the Global Jam, knocking down some corner threes, being that steady wing. He only got 9 points, but I like how, he's going to play a lot of minutes, I think, no matter what. He's going to just be that guy with him and Trey Mitchell. Man, Trey's been balling 22 in this one. He's the real deal.
I think they said he had the game high in points, rebounds, and blocks.
Yeah.
I think it was somewhere along the line of like 22, 12, and 3 or 22, 9, and 3, something pretty nice. And that's, we've talked about this before. You can go watch on our other podcasts, but he kind of fell into Kentucky's lap. Thank you, Bob Huggins. Sorry the way it happened, but, Kentucky did benefit from that. Especially with the injuries right now, he's our 5 to start the season. He's a veteran presence that we don't have much of outside of Reeves, and he's been a baller in all 5 outings that we've had from him this year. I mean, 22 points, led the entire team against Georgetown College, and he's definitely just something that fell in our lap that's really going to be, I think, a big piece for us this year.
Yeah, and hitting 4 threes is huge, too. I mean, he led the team in threes, and so Cal never lets his big guy shoot, right? Never. Obviously, that's the thing, but Trey's not a traditional big, and then once bigs get in, then Trey's going to play the 4 probably, and have some taller lineups, which can be good if the 5 that they're bringing can run the floor enough. We'll see if like Big Z can run the floor like that, but I think Bradshaw has the potential. once that foot heals up. I don't know about Ugana and Yenso. So I think they'll figure that blend out. But for now, I think I think the rest of the team's really going to enjoy having just Trey at the 5, play a little small. They can just run, right, get out in space. And, it'll make things a little bit tougher when they play a team that's got a good big, right? I mean, rim protection is going to be difficult for a little while. But until then, I think they're just going to have fun on offense for sure.
Yeah. Plenty of guards, plenty of options to have just run up and down and have fast-paced basketball. Over the last few years, like you said, we haven't had many dogs. It's been a kind of a few down years in terms of Kentucky, as I'm sure most of you watching probably like to hate on us on Kentucky. You're probably not big fans of it. But I think there was overkill this year. I think Cal went out and got this strong recruit class to have more than enough. As we're seeing, something we're not used to in a couple of years. And so that's a good thing to have in the back of your pocket of so many different options, who's having their night that night, who's not. You can pull in someone else. And then in terms of Aaron Bradshaw, I think he'll be the first one back likely of Zvonimir Ivisic. I hope I said that right.
Ivisic.
Yeah. Ugana and Yenzo. I think Aaron Bradshaw is shaping up to be the first one back likely. And that's probably, he probably out of those 3 need to be the best one on this team for them to have reach their ceiling. 5-star center out of Camden. Went there with DJ Wagner, I believe. I think Lance Ware is from there. Kareem Watkins came up from that way. He's a walk-on on the team. So big old pipeline out of basketball or New Jersey basketball. I'm sorry. And I think for him to have him back, it's going to be huge for this team. And it's just time only tells until that is. He's healing this injury on his leg. So
yeah, Georgetown College, good one. So now they got Kentucky State. Another good local team, playing at HBCU for the Unity Series, always a great, mission that, this program's done the last few years under Cal. And Jamal Jackson's a good coach. They got some guys. They had, a chance to really do something special in the SEAC last year. I covered a few of their games right here down the road here in Frankfurt. And they got talent. I haven't dug too deep into, this year's roster. I know they lost a couple guys, but they always got talent. So it's going to be another good little test for them.
Yeah, and he knows the Georgetown team a lot better than I do. They are a powerhouse in the NAIA world of college basketball. They're not just a nobody. Of course, Kentucky should beat them. Not be down or up 1 at halftime. They end up winning by 23, so it got back to where it needed to be. But they weren't no joke. I think the coach said they had 12 players off of from the state of Kentucky, so they've got a lot of local guys. But yeah, I mean, they've won how many Final Fours, how many championships the last few years? They've got quite a few, don't they?
Yeah, Coach Briggs has won 2 NAIA titles, 2013 and 2019.
Okay.
They made a couple Final Fours. They made the Final Four last year and then lost down in Kansas City, which was a heartbreaker for them, but they got pretty much everybody back besides Jake Omer, their big-time scoring guard. Last week I called him Cam Taylor-Britt, I think, the Bengals quarterback.
Yeah.
And producer Tim and our guys were like, "What are you talking about?" It's Cam Brooks Taylor, I think was his name, right?
Yeah.
He's a good wing for Georgetown, number 0, and he led their team in points with 21. So they got guys, good little test, but I just kind of wanted to see some real games, man. We're almost there, and the Kansas game is going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be one where, like, obviously everybody's going to be watching. It's in Chicago. I'm going to be there. I don't know if you're going to cover it.
I'm going to try to. I'm not sure just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Obviously, it's always a great event in college basketball. So we'll talk about that more probably next week's podcast when we get there. But it's just going to be exciting.
Yeah, and if you're going to play a preseason exhibition, instead of just beating a team by 60 where you don't really learn anything, I think it is good to have a Georgetown College, NAIA powerhouse, because, like I just said, we were only up 1 at halftime. So it was kind of like a good introduction to college basketball for these young freshmen. They're like, oh, okay, if you don't have, take every play seriously and play on your A game, you can get beat by anybody. Clearly, we were at home in Rupp, and, the first half was a little, but I didn't get too phased. It's just preseason exhibition. A lot of Kentucky fans do like to get worked up over that stuff. I was pretty calm the whole entire time. And I'm glad you mentioned, I totally forgot, but we do have producer Tim behind the camera. And, he's putting on this entire production. It ain't just a 2-man operation. We've got 3 people. But
talk about dogs. Tim's a dog.
Tim is a dog. Tim, thanks for being here. How you doing back there behind the camera?
Hey, doing good, man, in the operation.
Good. Couldn't be here without Tim.
I like the studio, too. It's a good little vibe. Got the
Cats Coverage headquarters.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so running here, this little operation here, but we got things going, and so we're excited to be with the Field of 68. And so one thing I did want to mention in this podcast is Edu Thiero. He's going to be coming that mix of veteran from was a young guy just last year, and he's really bulked up this summer. He's became I think he started against Georgetown College. Edu Thiero's I think going to be that glue guy, that guy just going to be. And he's going to get put in at any moment of the game off the bench and will be a spark of energy. He's a dog. He's got grit. That's what he first kind of got known for when he started playing last year, was just that guy will go out there and guard the best player, take the most charges, get the most blocks. He's got that grit. He's got that hard work, and it may not all the stuff that shows up on the stat sheets, but will show up everywhere else. So that's a guy I'm really excited about. Do you feel the same, or is there someone else you feel that way about?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Cal talked about it, and you can only trust Cal, a certain amount, right? I mean, he kind of sells a little bit. He's got the swagger. He's the salesman, right? He kind of sells it, and he's done the same about Antonio Reeves, saying Reeves is a completely different player. So far, we haven't seen it, right? I mean, we need to see him, more penetration so that he can kind of open things up. So he's not only a 3-point shooter when his shot's not falling, because we saw that at times last season where it just wasn't falling. So the jury's still out on Reeves when Cal is just saying like, oh, Reeves is just completely different. He's huge. So we'll see on that. But he did say over the summer that Edu has gained a lot of muscle mass, which is good, and you can kind of see it. So he wasn't capping on that one. And I think at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter as long as if he can defend at a high level, then he's going to get some minutes, right? Because the other guards, the freshman guards, are going to get the most minutes. They're going to start. Edu's going to come in off the bench. If he can defend, get a steal or two, and wake up the crowd, wake up his guys, wake up the bench, maybe when, they're struggling a little bit. That's what you need out of a guy off the bench, which is what Reed's going to bring you too. A punch, quick 3 off the bench, and then, pumps you up. Crowd loves Reed Shepherd, so he's going to come in and be a fan favorite. I think Edu has an opportunity to try to just make the most of his minutes, and he made the most of it when down in Tennessee last year when Casey was hurt, Casey Wallace and Xavier Wheeler, both point guards, struggling, and so he kind of came in and had some good minutes down in Knoxville, and they won that game. So he's just gonna have to settle for his moments, right? He's not a big 5-star guy, but he's a good player, so he's just got to make the most of it.
I'm even happy to throw Reed Shepherd in that category of not necessarily the the bulky, itty-gritty, just grind it out type of guy, but he's a guy that you can also throw in that mix of can absolutely do anything that you ask him of. In terms of, he's got I'm happy to say that he's probably got the best court vision on this entire team. He plays excellent defense. He's not a liability out on the perimeter at all. He can shoot from anywhere on the court. He can run the offense. We saw that in the blue-white game. Reed Sheppard is, he was Kentucky Mr. Basketball for the ones that don't know. He's probably going to be in that top 7, 8 rotation, but he's going to play a lot more than people, I think, thought he was when he committed to here almost 2 years ago. He's a Kentucky guy. He's a UK legacy. His dad and mom played at UK. They met. They were both basketball players as well. I think, like you just said, Reed had a crazy applause when he came into the game the other night, and his mom and dad were kind of courtside, and I think it was a cool moment. I think he had a big fan base there, and he will. That's how high school was for him. I mean, every gym was sold out. But Reed is going to be that guy that can just do anything you need him to do. He will do it. He'll do it efficiently, and I think he'll have a lot of opportunities over the next 2-3 years here. Yeah,
2 assists. I think he really surprised people up in Toronto in the Global Jam when he was distributing at a high level.
High level.
He was leading as the team in assists at one point. So I think that's big for you guys just to know that, like, okay, you got somebody that can come off the bench and facilitate, because that was a struggle last year, man. Like,
yes, it was.
When Xavier was trying to facilitate but would turn it over, and he'd make some bad decisions, and the fans are just freaking out. They're sick of him, right? And then Kaysen was great, but it's like then he got hurt, and it was just kind of like, all right, well, where does the offense go from here outside of just dumping it down to Oscar? Yeah. I think now that this team has some facilitators, even Rob, who's more of like a scorer first facilitator, really, if that makes sense. He's not like a pass first guy, but he still makes things happen. You got a number of guys that can facilitate. That's a good sign.
Well, let's go through that a little bit. Last year, this team was very, very limited, especially at the post. It was feed it to Oscar, let him do his thing, Jacob Toppin here and there, but that was it. This year we've got Trey Mitchell, who can shoot threes. Aaron Bradshaw's got a little jumper on him, but I know Cal won't let him have much of a leash. But let's go through it a little bit. Let's start with the guards. I mean, how many players can honestly run point guard? I mean, we've got DJ Wagner, Rob Dillingham can, Reed Sheppard, Antonio Reeves, Justin Edwards a little bit. I mean, there's a handful. Anyone else I'm forgetting who can just start off with a point guard who could run the offense? I mean,
you got guys, which is a good sign. But at the end of the day, you got to have shooters to kick it out to, right?
Yeah.
And so, if Reeves is hitting his shots, and we've seen him be explosive at times, right? That's always exciting for you guys. If you can kick it out to him on the wing, and then maybe Trey's in the corner. If you got your 5 in the corner being able to lead your team in threes, like, that's pretty insane. I think that's a good sign for you guys. And then Edwards, obviously, in the other corner, if he can hit those threes, then you really have true spacing, which is something that you still need in college basketball. We talk about it less in college than we do in the NBA, where you just have to in the NBA, but you still need it in college, and this team hasn't had it really since like Kellen Grady, then it was like, who else did you have 2 years ago? Really, nobody consistent. So if you get shooters like, if you have a lineup where you got Reed Sheppard and Antonio Reeves with DJ at the point, and then you got Justin Edwards and Trey Mitchell,
so many options.
That's scary, right? Then you got 4 shooters on the court with your facilitator. That's when it can get scary, and that would have been the dream with Oscar Tshiebwe there down low. They couldn't do it, but hey, you just got to move on, right?
Yeah, unfortunately you got to, but I think the vibes around Kentucky this year are pretty solid. Yeah. Going into that, the shooters that they have, I mean, majority of this team, you'd probably trust shooting a three-pointer. I mean, even the center at the moment, Trey Mitchell, is a pretty knockdown three-point shooter. So just an entire different roster, and a roster that Cal's comfortable with, that he's had the most success with in his tenure. Just teams that this roster can do. They've got so many options. And then if you go down to the big man, we don't have him back yet, but you got Aaron Bradshaw, true 7-footer. Big Z, I'll leave the name pronunciation to you, but he's 7'2". Ugo's 7'1", somewhere right in there. Got Jordan Burks playing a little bit of the 4. I think he's at like 6'9". Cal's trying to push the arrow to be a 4 position. He'll play somewhere probably in that 2-3. I'm not sure. But just for once, I mean, in the past handful of years, this team's got depth, and and a lot of options, and it's going to bring out any defense that you throw out there. It's going to, you can't just lock on to Kellen Grady and just, completely shut this offense down. You can't just lock on to Oscar. You can't just lock on to Casey. I know we're getting into different teams here, but truly there's 5 dogs on the court at all times that are going to be a threat to any defense that steps up in front of them. That's an exciting thing to have. I mean, Cal, he's not going to retire this year, I don't believe, but there's a lot of the narratives throughout the summer stuff is like, this is the perfect Cinderella, he could go win it all and walk off into, drive off into the sunset. I don't think that's going to happen, but if you're going to predict a successful postseason run, or at least a good one than what Kentucky's not had over the last few years, I mean, I think if you don't do it with this roster,
some of you guys are saying he won't retire, he'll just get out of town. Some of you guys are saying you want him gone in BBM, which is crazy. I mean, that would never happen. He's got his lifetime deal and everything. Yeah. He's not going anywhere. But I think, after last year, you guys wanted him gone. Then it's like, okay, you're going to let him take his number 1 recruiting class with him out of town?
Exactly.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So fan base got to chill a little bit. Just really enjoy this team, because I think they're going to be a lot more fun to watch, basically. Just enjoyable. I think when they're running, they're going to have some lobs. I think, Cal doesn't love when, his guys are just, throwing irresponsible lobs. But I think, that DJ's just going to have to throw a few to Aaron Bradshaw. Yeah. Like, it's just going to happen out of transition. If Bradshaw can run, we haven't seen it at this level. So if he can rim run, that'll be sweet. In general, like Justin Edwards is just going to get out on fast breaks, and you're just going to see someone throw it up to him, and he's going to get some dunks. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think less half-court stagnant basketball like we saw last year. That's going to be the real key, and I think can turn in the wins if they can knock down the basketball. And
there's so many we could sit here all night and mix in. It's just like pulling a name out of the hat of which point guard and which 3-4 man is going to run on the fast break for the lob. We could go all night and pick a mixture of these with the depth that this team has, and I think finally get to modern basketball. Not just the half court offense of just waiting for someone to come up and set the pick and roll and then figure out what happens from there. Because the past few years we've not had a whole lot of shooters after that happens. It's a let's get the pick and roll, and then if Oscar's there, give it to him. If not, let's settle for a mid range, and it's the same thing over and over again. Just a stale offense. Yucky. And a stale few years for Kentucky basketball. And I think this year there's, like you said it perfectly, excitement, a lot of joy, a good recruiting class. There's just a lot to be excited about, and I know it's the preseason. Kentucky fans get this way every year. I try to keep my head on straight and not fall for it each year, but there's a lot that you can't dispute of what we've seen so far. I know we saw the Global Jam. We saw they went 4-0 up there. They won it all, got a gold medal. We're just seeing this team's got deep chemistry. They all seem to like each other. Just at media day, I went around before, of course, the fire alarm got pulled. Was that you?
Yeah, I didn't pull it. I don't know. I was there. Yeah, and it was a disaster.
Something happened at media day. We were both there, and the fire alarm got pulled, so it got cut short. We didn't get to talk to a whole lot of people, but I went around. I had a question that was consistent with all the players. And you're a free time outside. I know Kentucky basketball takes every single hour of your day, just about. But outside of that, is there a teammate that you find yourself hanging out with, just individually, that you kind of like have a stronger connection with? And I only had to ask 5 of them before the fire alarm was pulled, but every single one of them I asked, they all said no. They would not budge at all. They all said no. We all hang out as a group. We all love each other. Reed Shepherd said, these are my best friends. I want to be with them at all times. There's so much off the court stuff that we've seen over the last few years, and right now this team just seems strong, just seems connected, seems like they want to be together. They show it translates on the court. I don't know. I think there's just a good group. Even if you're not even talking about X's and O's, just the morality of the team and the personalities. Yeah, for sure. And, they were at the Tennessee game, right? The football game over the weekend, hanging out and, taking pictures with fans, which is always fun. And even, when those freshmen got on campus, they came to Kentucky Proud Park and they were like hanging out, watching the baseball games and NCAA regional. And when they won that regional. So I think that was awesome. But I want to talk about defense, because at the end of the day, like, these guys are going to be fun and they'll score the basketball. And that's fine. But if you don't defend, you're just not going to be a good team, right? And so I think we talked about Adu. He gets 4 steals. That's fantastic. Him getting bigger, that's great. If he comes off the bench and makes some big time plays on defense, that's huge.
outside of that, I mean, they get 13 steals in total as a team. So the backcourt, Wagner and Dillingham each got 2. That's a good sign. The on-ball defense from Case and Wallace last year was just huge in the backcourt. You knew that you could put him on any guard, in the SEC, and he was gonna, slow him down, if not shut him down. And I don't think there's a guy like on this team just yet. We'll see if one can emerge into that level of on-ball defense. But either way, I think if they can continue to progress on that perimeter defense, that's going to be huge, because you think they're going to be pretty solid with interior defense. When you got these 7-footers, they're as long as they can defend the pick and roll and get back to the rim quick enough, then they're gonna be good rim protectors. And so we got to see what this team can do out in the perimeter. They got to defend and try to slow down fast breaks, get back quick enough, and try to suffocate with half-court defense.
Plenty of options, plenty of new things that we've not seen in a while, and we could sit here all night and list them, but there's plenty of different things that we're going to see this year from early on from this team of okay, we haven't had that in a couple of years, We've got true talented players that where a lot of them are going to lead the SEC and lead the country in their positions, and I don't know, it's just real exciting times. And they play again I believe it's this Thursday against Kentucky State, another exhibition. So I mean, you can only take a lot from those, but it's good to see them against another Jersey that's not theirs, in an inter-squad scrimmage or something of that nature. So we'll be back there Thursday, and then we'll be back here on Monday to talk about it. Before we get out of here, did you have any final points you wanted to let the listeners know of?
I know we did on our first podcast, we kind of gave our starting lineup predictions. And we got to see the first starting lineup, and it was DJ. Rob came off the bench, so it was DJ, Tone, and Tony Reeves, Adu Thiero, Justin Edwards, and Trey Mitchell. So yes. I think we were pretty spot on with those. Besides Adu, I mean, I think I had
Jordan Burks. My prediction, I think I had Jordan Burks in there for him. But yeah, I think I was wrong on Adu.
Yeah, I think it'll change obviously. When the bigs come back, will probably be in that starting lineup. Probably Bradshaw with Trey Mitchell, maybe. I mean, you got a 5-star big man, 7-footer. I think you kind of have to start him, so he probably will start. But I like Trey starting at the 5. But I probably would have thought that Rob would have started. I probably would have thought DJ Rob, and then Tone. Maybe if you want to do 3 guards with Edwards and Trey, but he wanted that extra size with Thiero, which I like, and that experience. I think
that was the big part.
Yeah, which I'm cool with that, obviously. So those don't really matter. Cal's gonna tweak those, but it was just kind of interesting to see that first one. And obviously, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who starts; it's who finishes. Right?
Yeah, and we saw the first 2 subs. They were Rob Dillingham and Jordan Burks. Yeah. So our predictions are still pretty close. The guys that we had in our 5 that weren't starting came right off the bench. So I think that is a good 7 core outside of the injuries that we can't obviously throw in at the moment to kind of start seeing, is this going to be the core? He put those 5 out there for a reason. Maybe it was just to have some veteran presence. There's 3 veterans on there to kind of calm the nerves. I think Antonio Reeves, I did also want to mention this in his post game. He said some of the players, of course they come to him because he's the leader on the team and he's the vet. And they said he didn't want to mention names. And he said one of the players was like, "Man, I'm nervous." And he's like, "You'll be fine after a couple minutes." And they went in and they all seemed to be fine. But they do lean on those guys. It's something that most people don't get to, unless you're us and get to go behind the scenes and talk to the players, they don't make it out past that of just they are freshmen. They're 18-year-old kids playing in Rupp Arena, So it's got to be scary for them, but I'm sure they adjust real quickly. So it's fun. Cool.
Yeah. And I mean, let's not feel bad for them too much. I mean, they're a D1 athlete at, Kentucky, one of the best college basketball programs, and just playing college basketball, which is a pretty fun way to enjoy your youth years for sure. But it's gonna be fun. Yeah, they do have a lot of pressure on them, on all of them. Obviously, some of these guys are gonna be one and done, so you're only gonna see them 1 year, and that's a problem for another day. But I'm just excited to see them. It was the 14th. Because the 11th is a Saturday. That's the Bama game for football.
That's right.
Football. But 14th, that following Tuesday, is going to be that Champions Classic game. So that's going to be fun.
I think we got the late game too, don't we?
Yeah, 9:30 spot.
And it's going to be 10:15 before it starts.
Right, man. But before that, New Mexico State, I think, is what's starting the season. Monday, November 6th.
Yeah. But we will be back here next Monday to recap the next exhibition. And again, we're happy to join the Field of 68 network. Thank you, Rob Doster and Jeff Goodman, for the invite. And we're happy to lead the way with the Kentucky Talk for your all's network, and hopefully kind of take over with the Kentucky fan base and kind of be a voice for them and see where these things go. It's a great opportunity, and I know I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. Just spread the word, guys. Retweet, share, whatever it might be. Send it to your friends, and we'll be giving you these updates every week.
Yep. Go to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. Go to the Cats Coverage YouTube channel. Cats Coverage, we're on every social media. And for you all that don't know, we are an entire media outlet. We have articles, we cover press conferences, interview the players, we do football, basketball. But with the Field of 68, our partnership with them is just basketball only. But if you care about any further Kentucky stuff, catscoverage.com. And for that, I think that's everything. I think we hit all points. I think that's it for the night.
Thursday, 7 o'clock.
All right.